Over the course of the last 3 days, I have played 27 hours of the Battlefield 5 beta, including a 10-hour non-stop stream yesterday where I played with my patrons and Twitch subs. Shameless plug, if you want to come follow me on Twitch, I stream nearly every day, twitch.tv/Jarek4GameandDragon. Plug out of the way, back on topic. I think I'm qualified to talk about the beta a little bit. The first thing I need to say is that this is a beta, and I don't mean this is a demo like a lot of other games do, where they have a beta a few weeks before the game comes out. Like, the game's months away, and this is definitely a beta. There were a lot of technical issues that you can attribute to it being a beta, and this is expected. I just want to talk about a few of them here because I want to rant for a moment. Not about anything bad, just sometimes bugs can be a little frustrating. For example, there is a revive bug in this beta that is fairly common, doesn't happen every time, but you will at least experience this once if you play the beta, where you will get a critical death when you die, but then if you get revived during this critical death, you can't respawn. The respawn ticker will be stuck at 9. The only thing you can do is leave the game and rejoin, which is incredibly frustrating when you leave the game and rejoin and get stuck in queue waiting to rejoin your friends in 10 minutes. This happened all the time, and again, it's a beta. This is something I fully expect them to have fixed before the game actually comes out, but oh man, this made me really annoyed. The next bug I want to talk about is they made bipoding have an animation now instead of you just lifting your gun up in front of you like a Battlefield 1. So it plays this little animation when you go to put your bipod out or take it off of something. I hate this because this animation will just sort of happen if you go near anything, and it'll happen as you're shooting at someone, which will probably get you killed. Helpful tip though, you can actually shoot while those animation's happening and the bullets go where you're looking, where they should go. So after you learn that, it's not as big of a deal, but it's kind of annoying. I mentioned these two things more as a disclaimer than anything else because, again, this is a beta. These things will definitely be fixed before the game comes out if they aren't fixed by the end of the beta. However, the thing that does concern me about this beta is that it really doesn't seem to be optimized well at all. And again, this could be a beta, and this is definitely the reason a beta exists, but almost everyone I knew had some sort of stuttering and frame rate issue with the game, including myself. Keep in mind, while I'm streaming, I can play Battlefield 1 max settings without a problem. Battlefield 5, I didn't have the same experience. I have a 980 Ti, 16GB of RAM, and my CPU is starting to get a little bit out there with an i7-3820, but it's still definitely not bad enough to cause this severe of issues. The big one is that I had a lot of stuttering, and stuttering issues are worse than anything else. Good news is that I was able to fix most of these problems by turning off the Origin in-game overlay because joy, what a great program Origin is. We should never question EA. Really though, that's Origin's fault and not Battlefield's fault. I've had the same problem with other games and I had to turn the Origin in-game overlay off with them as well. That said, even though it got rid of almost all of the stuttering issues, it didn't get rid of all of them. Occasionally I would turn to shoot at someone and the moment I shot it would stutter, or the moment I got shot it would stutter, and that's really frustrating because that determines whether you win or lose that gunfight. As for the frame rate, it was problematic as well for most people in my group. Only a few select of them didn't have problems. The snow map in particularly ran poor for me. Just how poorly? Well, in order to play it in any sort of proper way, I had to turn every setting possible down to the lowest settings. With the 980 Ti and a CPU that isn't completely obsolete and is still pretty decent. Keep in mind, this is the same computer that maxes out Battlefield 1 without a problem, so something else is going on here. Battlefield 5 is a step up from Battlefield 1, but it's not that big of a step up. That's also why the footage you see now is kind of low quality. In order to stream this game, I had to turn it to 720p, 30 FPS, and a lower bitrate, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to stream at all. Keep in mind I have the same problems whether I'm streaming or not, so it's not streaming causing these problems. What's interesting is that if I join an empty lobby, I can run around max settings without a problem. Cause explosions, I can't really do anything that'll make my frame rate drop below 60 FPS. But if I join even a half full game, my FPS starts tanking and I stutter. My suspicion on why this is because everything is synced in game now when it comes to reviving. Where that person died is exactly where he is for everyone in the server. Stuff like this is incredibly CPU intensive, and I noticed my CPU was maxing out every core at 100% while playing this game. This is what I think is causing it, but I'm not a developer and I'm not going to pretend I really know. That said, it's the only major difference I can think of between Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. It's also why MMOs tend to be pretty hardware intensive despite most of them really not looking very good. Now, a lot of that I can trace back to this being a beta. You expect these things to be fixed, but this one slightly concerns me because I don't know if this is really going to be fixed by launch, and only time will tell. Who knows? With all that out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay itself. How does this video game feel? Well, many of you probably looked at it and discarded it as being a reskinned Battlefield 1, but this game honestly does not play like Battlefield 1, despite what I've read online. The biggest difference I picked up on immediately was the gunplay. This gunplay feels so much better than the previous Battlefield games, and it feels more reminiscent to that of Battlefield 3 than Battlefield 1. Guns have proper recoil now. You do have to control the recoil of your weapon, and after a while you sort of understand how this gun feels, and you start getting a lot better at the game. Sounds familiar if you've played Battlefield 3. Doesn't sound too familiar if you ended up playing the previous Battlefield games since Battlefield 3. On top of this, the time to kill is much faster than the previous games. Again, it feels more like Battlefield 3. Battlefield 4 and on started making the time to kill slower, which drove me insane. It does not feel satisfying to have to shoot someone 5 times up close with an assault rifle. Thankfully, this is gone in Battlefield 5. It feels so much better having to only shoot people 3 or 4 times for them to go down. Now, to elaborate, it's not Call of Duty fast. Again, it feels much more like Battlefield 3. It's still Battlefield. The gunplay is classic Battlefield. It feels really good. Gunplay is the most important pillar when it comes to shooters, and thankfully Battlefield 5 nails how the guns feel. I don't know how much more I can restate it, but the guns are good. I was looking forward to unlocking every new weapon. I just enjoyed the game when it comes to the gunplay. That leads me to my next point, weapon balance. Thankfully nothing stood out as being really broken or really bad. Some things I did question a little bit, but really nothing that was game breaking, and I had to think about it like, is this really overpowered or is this really bad? Maybe I'm just not very good at the game. Nothing was glaringly broken, which is great. Let's go over each of the classes and share what they got in the beta. Assault got rifles for the most part, an STG, a Gewehr 43, another semi-automatic Enfield type rifle I'm forgetting the name of, and an M1 carbine. The STG is probably the most polarizing, as a few people were claiming it was overpowered, but I don't really think the STG is overpowered. I think it's just really easy to use. There's not really a situation where you're at a huge disadvantage when you're using the STG. It does really well at medium range, but at close range it should lose to SMGs and shotguns. At long range it should lose to snipers and DMRs. But it is possible to combat those DMRs, snipers, SMGs, and shotguns at their respective ranges. You just shouldn't win. You're not at a huge disadvantage, you're just at a slight disadvantage, and I think this is the problem that most people had. In all reality, I don't have much of a problem with the STG at all. If I was going to do anything to it, I would give it a little more recoil just to make it a little harder to use. But again, I don't think it's overpowered at all. I will say the M1 did feel pretty weak. This is the only gun in the beta I just could not get a feel for or do well with at all. I think a lot of that was because I couldn't really see what I was shooting at. With the default iron sights, the gun kicks up into your face and obscures your vision when you shoot. You should rectify that by putting a reflex sight on it, but the reflex sight is really dark and makes it hard to see anything, so I just couldn't really see what I was shooting at. Again, this is a thing where it felt weak to me, but I couldn't really get a whole feeling for it, so I don't know if it's actually weak or not. This is just one of the weapons I didn't really like. Like, it was usable, but it felt like I was at a disadvantage while I was using it. But again, maybe I just am not good with it. Who knows? The other two weapons did feel good. The DMRs did not feel useless. They felt very usable, even at closer ranges, and in general, they were pretty satisfying to use. Not quite Battlefield 3 DMR good, but closer to Battlefield 3 DMR than Battlefield 4 DMR, thankfully. The next class is the Medic class. The Medic class got SMGs, and these SMGs feel like you think they would feel. They have pretty good hipfire accuracy, they're pretty mobile. They have a little more range than previous Battlefield games, which is great because previous Battlefield games SMGs had no range at all. But in general, they feel like SMGs. I don't think SMGs are going to be the dominant guns in this game like they were in Battlefield 1, but they are pretty good. Next up is the support class, which got the heavy rifles in this game. There wasn't a quote-unquote traditional LMG like you would think of, like say the MG42 in the beta, but there was heavy rifles like say the FG42 and the Bren. All these felt really good. They felt like they did good damage, they did have a good amount of recoil, but they also had a bipod, so if you wanted to turn them into a laser beam with no recoil, you can also do that. They're incredibly useful defensively, but also you can use them more offensively. FG42 especially. Support did not feel like it was locking me into a defensive playstyle, which is good. Also, the last thing support got was the M30 drilling, a double barrel shotgun with a third barrel that had a rifle round, and holy hell do I like this thing. If there's anything in the game that I would think might be overpowered, it's this thing. I don't really know how to feel about this shotgun because it was the level 10 unlock for support, so not many people were using it. I do know when I used it, I by far had my best games, and it felt like the easiest thing to use for me, but I didn't really fight many other people that had it, so I don't know how to call it. What I can say is, damn, this thing is good. For a shotgun, it has a lot of range, it does a lot of damage, usually kills people instantly, and if they're too far away, you can just press the button you would usually push to swap fire modes, and swap to the rifle round, and that rifle round will always be a one-hit kill headshot.
LOL! Fuck your stupid sniper bullshit! It feels so good to do that. Please clip that shot. I just want it to be like, see, snipers, die.
What the?
Got him. This gun is so good.
If you get them in the body, it'll do 60 something damage and won't kill them, but to the head, always a one-shot kill. This rifle bullet also seemed to travel really fast and have practically no drop, so it wasn't too hard to do. If they're moving, it might be pretty difficult, but if they stand still for any moment, that headshot's super easy. This gun felt insane, and I'm phrasing it in a way that sounds like complaining, but I'm not complaining because, oh my goodness, this thing feels so satisfying. This can play out two different ways. It could be fine like it was in Battlefield 3 where shotguns were really good but everything else also killed quickly, so meh, it's fine. Or it can play out like Battlefield 1 with the Model 10 all over again. So shotguns on launch could be horribly overpowered, or they could be fine like they were in Battlefield 3, just really strong. Next up is Recon, and not too much has changed here. This is still the sniper class, but the way snipers work is thankfully different than Battlefield 1. That sweet spot system is gone. Thank goodness. It will never be a one-shot kill to the body with the weapons in the beta, but it will be a one-shot kill to the head. So much better than that dumb sweet spot mechanic we had in Battlefield 1. With that said, the Recon only got 3 snipers in the beta, and one of which was a semi-auto, which is new, and to me the semi-auto felt like the best gun for Recon. It would always kill in 2 shots, so it felt like a Battlefield 3 DMR, although it felt horrible from the hip, so up close it was kind of difficult to use. I can see this thing being a skill cannon because it is a crazy fast time to kill, but if you miss 1 shot, you're just dead. But it's also good at range. It can also kill in 1 shot to the head, but only to a certain distance. You can't just snipe them across the map instantly. To me, it felt like the best weapon just given my playstyle, but if you're the type that wants to get headshots from across the map, you probably should stick to the bolt actions. But if I was going to play Recon, this is totally the gun I would go for. Slight rant incoming, Recon is still the most annoying class in the game. Not a whole lot has changed as far as snipers go on Battlefield. You still have a bunch of snipers sitting up on hills that are being useless to both teams. Recon are annoying. I don't really know what you can do to change people from being a useless sniper. I don't get what's fun by camping out on the sides of the map trying to snipe at people, not getting many kills, or helping the objective at all, but people are always going to do it no matter what, unless you just straight up remove snipers, which is never going to happen. Too long didn't read, screw Recon, I hate Recon, I've always hated Recon. What I will say is that the flare gun feels more useful now. It was already great in Battlefield 1, but it's even more useful in Battlefield 5. People don't show up on the minimap like they didn't in Battlefield 1, but on top of this, one of the big changes to Battlefield 5, that 3D spotting is no longer a thing. You cannot spot enemies. If you press Q to spot one of them, instead you put a marker where you're looking on the map saying, hey look, there are enemies over there. You don't spot someone, there's no Doritos all over your screen. This is gone. Which also means you don't have markers on your map, really. So the flare gun is very useful. Unfortunately in the beta it wasn't used much because the main thing they spawned with, of course, are mines. The same thing Recons always spawn with. Put a few mines down and start camping. Lamest way to play. Again, I don't understand it. And I'm self-aware of how I sound here. This is a complaint that will always happen when it comes to snipers. Going back to pistols though, there was only 2 pistols in this beta, the P38 and the Ruby, and both felt really good. They didn't feel quite as weak as Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1's pistols felt good to finish enemies off, but terrible as a primary. Battlefield 5, you can totally get away with using this thing as a primary for the most part. You're still at a disadvantage, but you can do it, and it actually doesn't feel that bad. Like, these pistols feel about like what they were in Battlefield 3. They feel really good. With all the weapon mounts out of the way, let's talk about the big gameplay changes they made to Battlefield 5 from the previous Battlefield games. I already mentioned the first one. 3D spotting is gone, so no more Doritos everywhere. I mostly like this, but occasionally I don't, because it seems that the enemy models blend in really well with the map, so you can look right over enemies, even if they're not trying to hide. Though this is less of a problem of 3D spotting being gone, and more of a problem of people just blending in way too well with maps. The health system has been completely redone. You no longer regenerate health all the way to 100%, you only regenerate a certain amount. On top of time to kill being faster than previous games, this can make it seem like you just instantly kill people at times because they didn't regenerate all of their health. Now you can obviously get health back through your medic, but even this is different. When a medic throws you a med bag, this animation plays where you catch it and put it in your vest. Keep in mind you can cancel this animation so it never gets you killed, and if you're ADSing, this animation won't play to begin with, you just kind of have it. That was a concern I had, and thankfully it's not a concern. In fact, when the animation doesn't play, it is a little bit more confusing than when it does play, because you have to look at your HUD to make sure you picked it up. Anyway, you can carry one of these bandages, and you can use it whenever you want by holding down the 5 button. This is something that actually kind of annoyed me, not being able to use it, but that I couldn't rebind this. For some reason it was stuck to 5 and I couldn't put it anywhere else, and 5 is a little bit too far away to reach. But I digress, I actually really like this health system. If you're already hurt and a medic throws you a med bag, you instantly start regenerating your health, but also have that med bag he threw you. So you technically got 2 when he already threw you 1, which confused me for a little bit, but just note that as long as a medic throws you a med bag, you will have 1 in your inventory. And that 1 you can use at any given moment by holding down a button. You can also pick up med bags from certain crates that are scattered throughout the map, usually by your spawn and at objectives. So you don't have to have a medic throw you one, you can pick them up, but if you're playing with your squad, you should basically always have one. And that was the whole point of it, to try to force squad play, and I actually really like this. Since we're talking about medics, the revive system is also different. You can revive anyone in your squad whether you're a medic or not. However, the medic will revive them in a quarter of the time. It is much faster and usually better to let your medic revive people if he can. If he can't, please revive your squad mates though. The medic on the other hand can revive people out of your squad, but if you're not a medic you can only revive people in your squad. Again, it's trying to reinforce squad play, which I really like. But if you're a medic, please revive anyone on your team whether they're in your squad or not. Thanks. But this new revive system also gave a new system to see if you can be revived to begin with. When you die, there's an animation playing of you laying on the ground holding your hand out. You can look around anywhere to see if you're in a safe place to be revived and also to see if any teammates are nearby. If you hold down right click, you bleed out slower. If you hold down left click, you bleed out faster. In a way, I like this because, again, it lets me see if there are any enemies nearby or to see if there are any teammates nearby so I can tell them, hey, it's safe, come pick me up. But also, just let me skip this damn animation. So many times I will go down, look around and go, alright, there's too many enemies or there's no teammates nearby, and I want to be able to just double click and instantly go to the respawn menu. Instead, you have to wait for this to go down. Why? If you just allowed me to skip this, this would be a really good revive system, but I can't skip it, so it's really frustrating. Just let me skip it, and I will have no complaints here. This system is also why everyone's dead bodies needs to be synced and in the correct place for everyone, which again I suspect is what's causing so much of a hard time to my CPU. So again, I really like the idea, I don't quite like the execution. If they fix this, it will be awesome. Next up is a similar change they made to the support class, and this one is not so much liked by most people. You don't really spawn with much ammo. In fact, you spawn with 2 magazines, including the one in your gun. So you're gonna need to get extra ammo from your support class. When he does throw you ammo, or you pick up more ammo through ammo crates throughout the map like the medic crates, you will only be able to carry 3 mags, including the one in your gun, with the exception of the FG42 that gets 4. Not sure why there was an exception there other than it sprays bullets, so maybe it needed 4. Anyway, if you're not playing with a squad that's using heavy teamwork, you will run out of ammo quickly. Now, I was playing with a full squad anytime I played Battlefield 5, so it wasn't a terrible problem for me, but I can definitely see why people don't like this. Apparently DICE has acknowledged this, and they plan on changing it before the full launch, so who knows where they're taking that. Maybe they'll just let you spawn with more ammo, or raise the max amount of what you can carry. Maybe you spawn with 3 mags now, and then you can carry up to 5. I don't know, I would be okay with that change. As of right now, I just kind of am questioning why did they take it that far. Again, it doesn't make me rage, it's just a little weird. Now let's talk about vehicles. I've heard people complaining about both sides. People complaining that tanks are overpowered, and people complaining that tanks are too weak. To that, I question what game are they playing that they feel that these tanks are weak, but I don't feel that they're overpowered either. The Assault does have good tools to get rid of a tank, but I don't think they're particularly amazing or broken. You have sticky dynamite being similar to the dynamite in Battlefield 1, except for it sticks on things. You can throw it a bit farther than Battlefield 1, but it doesn't feel anywhere near as strong as dynamite was in Battlefield 1, so that balances that out. This dynamite I found to actually be somewhat buggy. The amount of times I threw dynamite, watched it fly 50 feet away from me, blew it up, just to somehow kill myself, because in all reality, server-based things, it landed at my foot, was countless. This happened to me so much. This was one of the more frustrating things. It also really loves to stick the things it shouldn't stick to. For example, branches are apparently one solid object, and these got in the way a lot. So dynamite could be worked on a little bit. Dynamite I actually found to be a better option to get rid of infantry than tanks. The better option to get rid of tanks is the Panzerfaust, which you will have to pick up more ammo for the Panzerfaust at dedicated ammo crates. If a support throws you ammo, that does not count towards Panzerfaust or Dynamite. The max you can carry is 3, so you're probably going to have to go back and forth if you want to get rid of a tank. You can do it, it's not terribly difficult, but it doesn't feel like it's too easy either. The last option is the more obvious option. Support has anti-tank mines, you just throw them on the road and then the tank runs over them and the tank dies. On the flip side, the tanks themselves are really strong in ways that you would expect. A tank shell will kill people instantly, and the machine gunner is very good. So a tank behaves like a tank, not much of a surprise, and I don't think the ways to get rid of it are too strong or too weak. What I think people are complaining about but they don't actually realize is the map design. Now to clarify, I really like this map design. The maps remind me more of a mixture of maps in Battlefield 3 and Bad Company 2. There are very clear places on this map for infantry to be and for vehicles to be. You should know when you're at a disadvantage or an advantage depending on where you are on the map. A tank can't roll up through all of the map. And there are places where a tank will get absolutely destroyed if you roll up in between a few big buildings where anyone could be inside of and completely obliterate your tank. I think it's more of a case of people not really knowing the maps and not really knowing where is a strong spot for a tank to be. And that's really high praise. Battlefield 3's maps were amazingly good. And I want to talk about these 2 maps that were on beta. Again, there was only 2 of them, this is a beta, so you don't get to see all of the maps. In previous Battlefield betas, they always showed us maps that I freaking hated. For example, in Battlefield 1, Sunai Desert. Great, a big open map, great for vehicles and snipers. This is not an infantry map. Why would this be in your beta? This is catered towards one style of play, a style of play that I personally hate, but you should be showing a beta that allows you to do pretty much everything, give people a real idea of Battlefield. And Battlefield 5 thankfully did that. My favorite out of the 2 was definitely Rotterdam. This is a pretty infantry-based one, but there are plenty of open roads for tanks to be, and it actually reminded me not of Amiens from Battlefield 1, but of Cyan Crossing, or Cyan Crossing in Battlefield 3, however you pronounce that, which I really like that map too. The other map is a snowy map that had some frame rate issues here or there for me, but the actual map design I liked. This is the one that reminded me more of Bad Company 2, and this is the one that really showed off full destructibility when it comes to the buildings. So many Bad Company 2 memories of me being inside of a house and to have a tank just obliterating the house and going, I need to get out of here, what am I supposed to do, I'm so screwed. Like, I'm sure you remember that in Bad Company 2, and that exact thing happens in Battlefield 1. However, the map itself has plenty of buildings and nooks and crannies for infantry to be in, despite being a more open map. Again, it feels more like Battlefield 3 in that regard, where infantry never feel completely useless, because the map is just too open and good for vehicles, like say in Battlefield 4 with Gold Mud Railway, or in Battlefield 1 with Sunai Desert. Although Battlefield 4 was more of a problem with that, with the maps just being bad, but that's a topic for another day. Bottom line, these maps are really good, and I hope the rest of them are as good as these 2. Speaking of cover though, this brings up the new Fortification system. If you press T, you'll bring up a toolbox and you're able to build fortifications. Each class can build different fortifications. For example, support can put out sandbags and give yourself more cover. This is great because once all the houses are destroyed, what are you supposed to do? You're a little bit screwed over and stuck. For example, Battlefield 4, Gold Mud Railway, buildings taken down, where do you now go? Battlefield 5, I never had this happen because I could always just sort of build fortifications to shield myself from the snipers sitting off on the hill like always. So I came into it not knowing what to really expect about this fortification system and left actually really liking it. You can't build fortifications anywhere. There are set places on the map where you can build them, so it's more or less just part of the map design that you can have something built on top of it without ruining the idea of being able to destroy everything. Speaking of destroying everything, let's move on to the last thing they added in Battlefield 5 that wasn't in the previous Battlefield games, for the most part. And that's what the squad leader can do. At any given moment throughout the game, you can see this little points thing right next to your squad in the bottom left. As the game goes on and as you do more things, you get more squad points. The squad leader at any given moment can use these points to do one of 3 things. Either A, to call in a medic and ammo crate box from the sky, which is pretty cheap. B, to pull in a super tank, which is really strong. Or C, to drop a huge bomb on their ass. I always save my points and went for the bomb, which costs around 42,000. This thing is so amazing. The sound it makes when it's flying in is indistinguishable. It sounds terrifying, and then it stops before it starts going down. So it starts making the noise, stops, flies down, explodes, and if you're a little farther away from it, you see the explosion, and then the shockwave and the sound hits you. When you start hearing the noise of this flying in, you don't know where it's going. You can see it and you can follow it, but you just know it's coming, so you better get your ass to cover. Like, that bomb at that moment is way more of a threat than anyone you're trying to shoot at. This is also what you were seeing in all the trailers where a big explosion went off and you got knocked over. If you're not standing within the range that will kill you, the bomb will knock you over. I actually originally saw this in the trailers and went, wow, that looks really annoying. I hate knockdown mechanics because they've always been terrible in every other shooter I have played. However, I don't mind them here, because this is the only big enough explosion to actually knock you over. And these things are not very frequent. They require a lot of points to be able to use. A regular grenade or a tank shell is not going to knock you over, it's just going to blow up near you. These things are the only things that will knock you over. And it makes it significant because, again, they're not too common, and when they happen, it's a big thing. For example, a good squad is probably only going to call one of these in per game, and if they're really, really good, maybe two. So it makes them extra bombastic, pun intended. This is another mechanic they use to try to force squad play a little bit more, and I really like it, because these things can be used to take over objectives pretty effectively. For example, you may be in a really good squad but be on a crappy team, and they took over all the objectives. You can't seem to get that objective closer to your spawn, so you put down one of these bombs, and then suddenly you have this objective.
Was it JB2 or V1?
We now require a JP2 airstrike at this location.
JP2. Alright, here it comes. This is gonna be real.
Be ready.
Where's this guy?
Oh my god!
Shit.
Oh my god!
God damn!
Jesus Christ!
That was one hell of a bomb. Someone else, I think, put one on A2. We capped it. That was everyone there. Oh god, there's another one here.
The one thing they added in the Battlefield 5 that I'm in the firmly dislike category about are the weapon upgrades. Every weapon in this game has two skill trees. The upgrades do things like less vertical recoil, less horizontal recoil, better hipfire accuracy while moving, better ADS accuracy while moving, faster rate of fire, etc, etc. I see what they're going for with this. They want every weapon to be usable in different ways. So say you're someone that likes a fast fire rate SMG and you want to get up in people's face, you're probably really not going to care too much for the Sten. But if you have an upgrade that gives you better hipfire accuracy and a faster rate of fire, that weapon is suddenly more your thing. Compared to, say, another skill tree which makes it more accurate and have less recoil, so you can ADS and kind of pick people off a little bit farther away, while still being, SMG range. However, my thing with that is, why not just make another gun that serves that purpose? I don't like this for two different reasons. The first one is that it kind of invalidates the gunplay. The gunplay feels really good in Battlefield 5. Guns have recoil, and once you understand a weapon, you can be really good with it because you understood the weapon. But the bigger reason I dislike it is because it adds this element of randomness you cannot predict that annoys the hell out of me. For example, say you have a fast-firing SMG, and you're waiting around a corner. Someone rounds that corner with an STG. They're in your face about 10 feet away or closer. You, with a fast-firing SMG, should have the advantage. You both shoot at the same time, neither of you miss, and you die anyway. You don't really know why you died. Maybe you actually did miss. Maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. Maybe he was just a better player. Maybe he got a headshot. Or maybe he has an upgrade that makes his gun have a faster rate of fire, thus being able to beat you. I don't like not knowing why I died, and that can make the game really frustrating. It's not a good feeling when you feel like you did everything right and for some reason you still lost and you don't know why. Again, I do not like this addition, and if it was up to me, I would just remove it entirely. So final conclusion, how do I feel about this beta? Unpopular opinion, I'm loving the hell out of it. Now I'm coming to the conclusion that people didn't like this game before they even played it. Battlefield 5 is a perfect game to use an example of quote-unquote rage culture. I hate this term, but it's the perfect way to describe it. People getting upset over absolutely nothing. As I always said, you should not be expecting a realistic World War II game, you should be expecting a Battlefield game. The first word in the title of the game. People were already sour about the game before they saw any gameplay of it, so of course that translated over to this game sucks. The internet seems to have a hive mind mentality of this game is absolutely terrible, and they're just going and taking that farther and farther. The last example I saw is when I uploaded a weapon showcase of Battlefield 5, and the comments I got were mind-numbingly questionable. A lot of the comments I got said the gun sounded terrible, which, are they just using bad headphones? Do they have a bad sound setup? Like, what are they hearing that makes it sound bad that I'm not hearing? The guns sound great to me. I got quite a few others saying that the animations were bad. One of them even said that weapon animations in Battlefield had been going downhill ever since Hardline, and what? What games have you been playing? Have you forgotten how terrible the animations were in Battlefield 4? Every pistol had the same animation that didn't even show the magazine, just slapping the bottom of the pistol. Battlefield Hardline was not terrible for animations, but certainly not the smoothness that Battlefield 3 had. And Battlefield 1 had some of the best animations in the series, especially the DLC. Battlefield 5 to me is absolutely no exception. The gunplay and animations are a lot of the reason why I really liked the beta. I'm pretty sure this is going to be another situation like, say, Halo 5, where people that didn't even play the game are saying the game is garbage. How many times did you hear people say that Halo 5 is the next Call of Duty because it had an ADS animation, even though the animation was all it was to it? The aiming was the same as every Halo game before it, not named Halo 4. And Battlefield 5, the amount of times I've heard people say that it's just a Battlefield 1 reskin, is already getting me incredibly annoyed. Now, usually I just ignore these types of things because stupid people get angry at stupid things, but I can't ignore these because every Battlefield video I upload gets some comment saying, this game is shit, this game is awful, it's stupid, rip Battlefield. First of all, why are you posting this on a Battlefield 3 video from 7 years ago? What does this have to do with anything? Secondly, I do not care. Again, the internet has a hive mind mentality, and the big thing right now is to hate Battlefield 5, just like how the big thing before was to hate Far Cry, or to hate Call of Duty, and just randomly hate games that you don't even possibly play, or you haven't even played Far Cry 4, but now it sucks. Far Cry 3 is way better. I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but holy shit, this stuff is getting super old. I don't see what people are seeing. I don't know why people are getting so angry about Battlefield 5. When this game comes out, I'm definitely getting it, and I'm putting hundreds of hours into it, just like I did with every Battlefield game before it. So I'm still excited about it. Battlefield 5 is still a game that I have on my radar, and I really, really like this beta. And don't get me started on the people that hated Battlefield 5 before they even saw any gameplay of it because there were women and black people in it with prosthetic arms. Oh no, my immersion. Are you telling me that a tank shell blowing someone up and you being able to revive them with a simple syringe doesn't break your immersion? Or someone jumping around corners with an AEK like everyone does in Battlefield 4 doesn't break your immersion? They were cosmetic options added to a mostly multiplayer game. Who the fuck cares? What's even worse is all these people claiming that they're adding social justice warrior politics into the game when they're the ones creating the social justice warrior politics. Nobody cares. Shut the fuck up and enjoy the game and buy it, or don't enjoy the game and don't buy it. Judge the game on the gameplay instead of trying to inject politics where they don't belong and don't exist. And just for emphasis here, I don't care. Please shut the fuck up about this. Some people do actually want to judge the game on the gameplay itself, or do want to enjoy the game. Just because you're raging and getting butthurt about something so simple and stupid doesn't mean everyone else is so easily upset. I really miss a time when everyone looked at video games as just games, like they should be. Video games. And that's what Battlefield 5 is. Please stop adding politics into everything. Sorry for the mini rant there at the end. That should sum up everything I like and dislike about Battlefield 5's beta. Huge thanks out to my patrons, who I did a patron stream with yesterday that lasted for 10 hours. And I also did that with my Twitch subs. If you want to go to my Patreon, you can see it right there, patreon.com/Jarek4. If you want to come follow me on Twitch, as I said earlier, twitch.tv/Jarek4GamingDragon. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you later.